The final report is not a vindication. It is just paper. He places it on the polished table, and his presence is the only testimony that matters. Elias Thorne works with his hands. The scent of ozone and hot metal clings to his clothes, a perfume of creation and repair. In the cavernous R&D hangar of Vance Aeronautics, the air hums with the silent potential of machines not yet born. He stands before the XT-7 turbine prototype, a sculpture of polished titanium and coiled copper wire. His fingers, calloused and clean, trace the seam of a plasma-welded joint. He does not use a datapad. He does not consult a holographic display. He closes his eyes. He listens. The massive engine is silent, yet he hears its tensions, its stresses, the ghost of the energy it is designed to contain. He can feel the molecular integrity of the alloy through the thin leather of his gloves. A young engineer, barely out of university, watches him with a mixture of awe and confusion. The boy holds a tablet showing fluctuating energy models and thermal projections. The numbers are green. The models are stable. Yet Elias shakes his head, a slow, deliberate motion. He opens his eyes and taps a single bolt head on the primary housing. "Here," he says. His voice is low, calm, a tool meant for precision, not volume. The harmonics are off by 0.003 degrees. When this spins to cycle, it will create a shear, microfractures at first, then catastrophic failure. The young engineer looks at his perfect data. He looks at the silent, inert machine. He looks at the quiet man who sees the invisible. The engineer says nothing. He just nods and makes a note to recalibrate everything. Elias does not wait for thanks. He turns and walks away, his worn work boots making soft, rhythmic sounds on the sealed concrete floor. His day is done. The drive home is a transition between worlds. The hangar, a place of cold, hard physics, gives way to the soft, unpredictable world of a 7-year-old girl. His truck is a relic. A 1986 Ford, its blue paint faded to the color of a stormy sky, with rust blooming like lichen along the wheel wells. The engine, however, is not a relic. It is a masterpiece of quiet restoration. Elias rebuilt it himself, piece by piece. It does not rumble. It purrs, a low, steady vibration that he feels in his bones. It is honest. It is a machine that does not pretend to be anything other than what it is. He pulls into the driveway of his small house, a simple bungalow with a tidy lawn and a porch swing that needs a new coat of paint. He cuts the engine and sits for a long count of 10. The ticking of the cooling metal is the only sound. He sheds the identity of the engineer. He becomes a father. Lily meets him at the door. She holds up a drawing, a riot of purple and orange crayon. "It's a rocket ship," she announces. "It has a special engine so it can go to the star where Mommy lives." Elias crouches down, bringing himself to her level. He studies the drawing with the same focus he gave the turbine. "The vectoring looks good," he says, his voice softer now. "But you might need a better heat shield for atmospheric re-entry." Lily giggles. "It's crayon, Daddy." "The best things start with crayon," he answers. Their evening routine is a quiet ritual. He makes toast, perfectly browned, and tomato soup from a can. She tells him about her day at school, about a boy who pulled her hair and a girl who shared her glitter glue. He listens, asking questions at the right moments. He does not talk about his work. He does not talk about microfractures or harmonic resonance. That world does not belong here. Here, in this small kitchen filled with the smell of toast and the sound of his daughter's chatter, the only thing that matters is the structural integrity of a 7-year-old's heart. He braids her hair before bed, his large, capable hands surprisingly gentle as they weave the strands of brown silk. She falls asleep telling him a story about a talking squirrel, He sits by her bed until her breathing is deep and even. He looks at her small face, a perfect fusion of his own and his late wife's. In this room, he is not the man who can hear the stress in metal. He is just the guardian of a small, fierce light. The next morning, the air is crisp with the promise of autumn. Elias drives the old blue truck back to Vance Aeronautics. He has a parking pass. It is old, laminated, the photo faded. It was a gift from Robert Vance, the company's founder, Clara's father. It grants him access to the executive VIP lot, a privilege he rarely uses, but today he is running late after a last-minute search for a lost library book. He pulls the truck into a space marked Reserved, next to a gleaming black electric sedan that whispers of wealth and power. As he climbs out, the sedan's door opens. Clara Vance emerges. She is the new CEO, her father's heir. She is tall, dressed in a severe grey suit, her face a mask of composed authority. She looks at the rusty truck. Then she looks at Elias. Her eyes, the same sharp blue as her father's, sweep over his simple work clothes, the worn jacket, the steel-toed boots. They register him not as a person, but as a problem, an inconsistency, a piece of data that does not fit the algorithm of her world. Behind her, her chief operating officer, Marcus Jennings, steps out of the passenger side. He is smiling, a thin, predatory curve of his lips. The smile does not reach his eyes. "Good morning, Miss Vance," Marcus says, his voice smooth as polished granite. He gestures with his chin toward the truck. "Seems we have a stray." Clara's focus remains on Elias. She does not raise her voice. She does not need to. Her authority is a cold, dense field that radiates from her. "This is a reserved parking area," she says. The words are simple, declarative. They are not a question. They are a judgment. "I'm sure the general lot has space for that." The pause is deliberate. The word "that" hangs in the air, stripping the truck of its history, its purpose, its carefully maintained heart. It becomes just a piece of junk, an eyesore, a public slight delivered with surgical precision. Other executives are arriving now, their expensive cars gliding into their designated spots. They see the scene. The new CEO, the man in the work clothes, the rusty truck. They avert their eyes, pretending not to notice, but they are all listening. Elias looks at Clara Vance. He sees her father in the set of her jaw, the intensity of her gaze. He also sees a grief she holds coiled inside her like a spring, and a desperate need to prove herself, to fill the void her father left. He does not show her the laminated pass in his wallet. He does not mention the years he spent working side by side with her father, building this company from the ground up. He does not say that the engine in her silent electric car is cooled by a thermal regulation system he designed on a napkin in the company cafeteria 10 years ago. He does not defend himself. He does not argue. He does not explain. He simply holds her gaze for a count of 3. Then he gives a single small nod. He gets back into his truck. The engine starts with a quiet turn of the key. He backs the truck out of the VIP space and drives toward the sprawling general parking lot at the far end of the campus. His movements are calm, unhurried. He leaves behind a silence that is heavier and more unsettling than any shouting match could ever be. Clara Vance stands in her father's office. It is all glass and steel, a monument to modern, impersonal power. She had it redecorated after he died, stripping away the warm wood and worn leather he had favored. She wanted a space that was hers, a space that looked forward, not back. But the room feels empty. It has no soul. She stares out the floor-to-ceiling window at the sprawling campus below. She can just see the far corner of the general parking lot, a tiny speck of faded blue amidst a sea of newer, shinier vehicles. She replays the morning's encounter, the man's face, the quietness of his eyes, the way he had simply accepted her judgment without a word of protest. It bothers her. A man who is in the wrong argues. He makes excuses. He gets angry. He does not simply nod and comply with a look of, what was it? Not fear, not defiance. It was something that looked almost like patience. Marcus Jennings enters her office without knocking. "A good call this morning, Clara," he says, helping himself to a drink from the minimalist bar she had installed. "It's important to set a tone, standards. We can't have mechanics thinking they're on the same level as the executive team." "Who is he?" Clara asks, her back still to him. "Thorne. Elias Thorne. He's one of the old guard, been here forever. Your father kept him around for sentimental reasons, I think. A bit of a relic, honestly. Spends his time tinkering with prototypes in the R&D hangar." Marcus swirls the amber liquid in his glass. "He's good with his hands. I'll give him that. But he's not a team player. Doesn't understand the new corporate structure." Clara turns from the window. "A relic," she repeats, testing the word. It does not feel right. The man in the parking lot did not feel like a relic. He felt grounded, rooted in something she could not name. "Exactly," Marcus says, smiling his thin smile. "This company needs to look to the future, not the past." The future arrives at 11 o'clock that night. It arrives in the form of a piercing alarm that echoes through the deserted halls of the R&D building. Clara is in her office, poring over quarterly projections, when her desk phone shrieks. "It's the XT7, the night shift supervisor says, his voice tight with panic. "We were running a low-power diagnostic and the core temperature is redlining. The containment field is fluctuating." Clara is on her feet, grabbing her jacket. "I'm on my way." When she reaches the R&D hangar, the scene is controlled chaos. Engineers are shouting readings at each other. Marcus is there, looking flustered, his corporate polish stripped away by the emergency. He is barking orders that no one seems to be following. "It's a design flaw!" he yells at Clara over the din of the alarms. "I told your father the schematics were too aggressive." Clara ignores him. She looks at the main console, at the terrifyingly erratic lines on the screen. This prototype is the key to a multi-billion-dollar defense contract. Its failure would cripple the company. "Shut it down," she orders. "We can't," a young engineer replies, his face pale. "The shutdown sequence is failing. If we can't stabilize the gyros, the housing will rupture." The words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken consequences. A rupture would not just destroy the prototype, it could level the entire building. Silence falls for a moment, a pocket of dread in the storm of noise. Then an older technician speaks, his voice quiet but clear. "Get Thorne," Marcus scoffs. "What's the relic going to do?" "He'll know," the technician says simply. "He'll listen to it." Clara makes the decision. "Call him." Elias arrives 20 minutes later. He's wearing the same clothes as that morning, but now he carries a heavy-looking canvas tool bag. He's followed by a small, sleepy-looking girl in pajamas, clutching a worn teddy bear. Lily. There was no one to leave her with. Elias hands her over to the old technician who made the call. "Keep her in the office, George. Don't let her watch the screens." He walks toward the chaos. He passes Clara without a glance. He ignores the frantic shouting and the blaring alarms. He walks to the main control console, places his hands flat on its surface, and closes his eyes. He stands there for a full minute, perfectly still. The entire room seems to hold its breath, watching him. Then he opens his eyes. "It's not the gyros," he says, his voice cutting through the noise. It's the coolant feed. The secondary valve isn't opening. The system thinks it's flowing, but the actuator is stuck. He turns to the young engineer from that morning. Get me a number 7 torque wrench and a micro-bore scope. He does not wait for an answer. He is already walking toward the containment chamber, shrugging on a protective vest. For the next hour, he works. He directs the team with quiet, precise commands. He never raises his voice. He moves with an economy of motion, a deep, instinctual understanding of the machine in front of him. He is not fighting it. He is communicating with it. Clara watches, mesmerized. She has seen hundreds of engineers work. She has never seen this. This is not a job. It is a conversation. Finally, with a soft click that is almost inaudible beneath the dying wail of the alarms, he secures the final bolt. The temperature readings on the main screen begin to fall. The erratic lines smooth out into steady green waves. The crisis is over. A collective sigh of relief ripples through the hangar. Elias strips off the vest and walks back to the console. He wipes his hands on a rag from his pocket. He still has not looked at Clara. He has not acknowledged her presence in any way. He just did the work. In the quiet aftermath, Clara walks to the small office where George had taken Lily. The little girl is awake now, sitting in a large chair, her small feet dangling far above the floor. She is not crying. She is watching her father through the office window as he talks quietly with the engineering team. Lily turns her head and sees Clara standing in the doorway. She looks at the powerful CEO with wide, curious eyes. "Daddy was fixing the loud noise," she says. "Yes, he was," Clara answers, her voice softer than she intended. Lily slides off the chair and walks over to Clara. She looks up at the tall woman in the expensive suit. "Daddy says you have to listen to the metal," Lily says, her voice serious and small. "It tells you when it's tired, just like people." The innocent words strike Clara with the force of a physical blow. She looks from the child's earnest face to the man in the hangar, the man she had dismissed as a relic, the man who had just saved her company. He listens to the metal. What else does he hear? What else has she refused to listen to? The seed of doubt planted in the parking lot that morning begins to sprout in the sterile, quiet hangar. The next day, Clara pulls the original design schematics for the XT7. They are digital files, of course, but she wants the source scans. She finds them deep in the company archives. In the bottom right corner of each page, there are 2 sets of initials inside the approval box. One is RV for Robert Vance. The other is ET. She brings a printout to Marcus. "Who is ET?" she asks, her tone casual. Marcus glances at the initials. "Oh, that's just some old drafter. Long gone. Your father had a habit of letting the little guys sign off on things. Kept morale up." He says it smoothly. Too smoothly. It is a lie. Clara doesn't know how she knows, but she does. It is a clean, perfect lie. But like the turbine, it has a harmonic flaw that only a certain kind of attention can detect. She does not challenge him. She just nods and takes the schematic back. That afternoon, she walks down to the main workshop, a place she has not visited in years. The air smells of oil and solvent and hard work. She finds George, the old technician from the night before, calibrating a lathe. He is a man with a kind, wrinkled face and hands that have known 50 years of honest labor. Section. He turns off his machine when he sees her. "Miss Vance," he says, wiping his hands on a rag. "Can I help you?" "George, you worked with my father for a long time," she begins, getting straight to the point. "Yes, Mum, since the beginning." She shows him the schematic. "Tell me about ET." George looks at the initials. He looks at Clara's face, searching her eyes. He is deciding whether to trust her. He is a gatekeeper to a history she has never known. "Why do you want to know?" he asks, his voice gentle but firm. "Because I'm tired of not listening," she says, the words surprising her with their honesty. That seems to be the right answer. George sighs, a long, slow release of breath. "Elias Thorne was not just a drafter, Miss Vance. He was your father's partner. Not on paper, but in here." He taps his temple. "And in here." He taps his heart. "Your father was the visionary, the salesman, the force of nature. But Eli was the soul of the machine. He was the one who could make your father's dreams hold together under pressure. Every core patent this company holds, Eli's hands are on it." "Then why is he working in the hangar?" Clara asks, her voice barely a whisper. "Why isn't he running the company?" "Some men don't want to run things," George says. "Some men just want to build things and protect things." He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. After his wife passed and Lily came along, his priorities changed. And he and your father, they had a disagreement about people, about the direction of the company. George looks over his shoulder as if to ensure they are alone. "Your father was a great man, but he could be blind to the ambition of lesser men. He chose to trust the wrong person." He does not say a name. He does not have to. The next week, Clara schedules a full-scale systems review at the off-site R&D hangar. It is a pretense. She does not care about the systems. She wants to observe Elias Thorne in his own environment. She watches from a glass-walled observation deck as he works with his small team. He is not a manager. He is a conductor. He moves between stations, offering a quiet word here, a slight adjustment there. He does not command. He collaborates. His team, a mix of young prodigies and veteran engineers, treats him with a reverence that borders on devotion. They bring him problems they cannot solve, and he helps them see the solution that was there all along. In the middle of the afternoon, his phone buzzes. He answers it, turning away from his work. Clara watches as his entire posture changes. The focused intensity of the engineer dissolves, replaced by a soft, paternal warmth. A smile touches his lips. He is listening to a story about a talking squirrel or a lost library book. He is a father, and in that moment, Clara understands. He is not a relic. He is the company's anchor, the quiet, steady center of gravity that has kept it from spinning apart. That evening she goes not to her sterile mansion, but to her father's old house, which she has kept shuttered since his death. She walks into his study, a room that still smells of old books and pipe tobacco. She ignores the massive, modern glass desk he used in his final years. She goes to the old oak roll-top desk in the corner, the one he used when the company was just a dream operating out of his garage. She runs her hands over the wood, remembering George's words. Your father kept his real work in his old roll-top. She searches for a hidden latch, a secret button. She finds it behind a piece of decorative trim. A false bottom in a deep drawer clicks open. Inside there is a single, thick, leather-bound journal. She sits in her father's worn chair and opens it. The first entry is dated 20 years ago. The last is from the week before he died. For hours, she reads. She reads about the birth of a company, a friendship, a dream. She reads about the genius of a young engineer named Elias Thorne, and she reads about the creeping ambition of a junior executive named Marcus Jennings. It is all there, written in her father's familiar looping script. The truth in 3 devastating parts. First, the treachery. Marcus had stolen an early engine design from Elias, changing just enough to claim it as his own. The theft had secured a crucial early contract, and by the time her father discovered the deception, exposing Marcus would have meant ruining the company they had just built. So he promoted Marcus. He kept his enemy close, a decision he lamented in the journal as his greatest moral failure. Second, the respect. Page after page is filled with her father's admiration for Elias. "Eli is the finest, most honorable man I have ever known," one entry reads. "He does not build machines, he gives them a conscience." Third, the sacrifice. After his wife's death, Elias had come to her father. He had voluntarily stepped away from the executive track, giving up his claim to leadership. He wanted to be present for his daughter. He wanted to do the work, not manage the work. He made her father a promise. He would always stay, always watch, always protect the integrity of the company's engineering from the inside. He knew about Marcus. He had always known, and he had stayed silent, honoring his promise, trusting that Robert Vance's daughter would one day prove herself worthy of her father's legacy. Clara closes the journal. The room is dark. Tears are streaming down her face. She is not crying for her father. She is crying for the man she insulted in the parking lot. She drives. She does not know his address, but she finds it in the company's personnel files on her phone. It is a small house in a quiet, unassuming neighborhood. The lights are on in the garage. She finds him there, standing over the stripped-down frame of an old motorcycle. The air smells of grease and polish. He looks up as she enters, his expression unreadable. He does not seem surprised to see her. "I'm sorry," she says. The words are inadequate. They are small and brittle in the quiet space. "For the parking lot, for everything. I read my father's journal. I know." Elias picks up a clean rag and slowly, methodically wipes his hands. He leans against his workbench. "He was a good man, Clara. He just got lost for a while." "Why?" she asks, the question raw. "Why didn't you ever say anything? Why did you let me treat you like that?" He looks at her, and for the first time, she sees the full depth of his quiet strength. "It wasn't my place," he says simply. "Telling you who to trust wouldn't have made you trust them. It was a lesson your father wanted you to learn on your own. My job was just to make sure the machines ran until you did." He gestures around the garage at the neatly organized tools, the carefully labeled drawers. "A fight in a parking lot is just noise. This is real. The work is real. That's all that's ever mattered." The back door of the garage opens, and Lily pads in, wearing fuzzy bunny slippers. She carries 2 steaming mugs of hot cocoa, holding them with intense concentration. She gives one to her father, then she turns and holds the other one out to Clara. "Daddy says you're sad about Grandpa," she says. "My mommy is in the stars, but I still talk to her. It helps." Clara takes the mug. Her hand is trembling. Lily reaches out her small, free hand and places it on Clara's arm. The contact is warm and real. It is an anchor in a world that has just been turned upside down. Clara looks at this small, wise child and at her quiet, principled father. And she understands that this little garage, filled with the smell of cocoa and motor oil, is the true heart of Vance Aeronautics. The day of the demonstration arrives. Senator Morrison, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, is coming for a final review of the XT-7 prototype. The contract and the company's future hangs in the balance. Marcus Jennings is confident. He has spent the last week making subtle, untraceable adjustments to the fuel-to-air mixture ratios. The engine will start perfectly, but under full power, it will choke. It will fail spectacularly, and he will be there to blame the failure on Elias Thorne's outdated, hands-on approach. He will be the one who offers the solution, a new design he has conveniently waiting. He will be the hero. He does not know that Clara has spent the last 3 days with Elias in the hangar. They have worked side by side, a new and powerful alliance. Her sharp, strategic mind, now cleared of doubt, and his profound, intuitive genius. They found Marcus's sabotage within the first hour. They did not correct it. They documented it. They logged every altered line of code, every tweaked valve setting. And then they created a bypass, a hidden parallel fuel management system controlled by a separate, secure processor. The prototype is now, in effect, 2 engines in one, the one Marcus thinks he controls and the one that is actually real. The hangar is filled with board members, military brass, and press. The air is thick with tension and anticipation. The XT-7 sits in the center of the room, a gleaming idol of technological promise. Just before the demonstration is set to begin, Clara steps onto the presentation platform. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the test, I'd like to call a brief, informal board meeting to discuss a matter of internal corporate governance. A confused murmur ripples through the crowd. Marcus, standing beside the senator, looks annoyed by the delay. Elias stands silently at the back of the room, near the main hangar doors, his arms crossed. He is just a mechanic, watching from the sidelines. Clara brings up a slide on the main screen. It is not a marketing graphic, it is a financial spreadsheet. I've been reviewing our R&D expenditures, she says, her voice calm and cold as ice. And I've found some anomalies, specifically significant cost overruns and material diversions, all personally approved by our COO, Mr. Jennings. Marcus's face tightens. Clara, this is hardly the time or place. I think it's the perfect time, she says, clicking to the next slide. It shows lines of code. This is the fuel management code for the XT-7 as of this morning. And this, she clicks again, and new lines appear in red, is the code that was installed yesterday, overriding the original. Code that introduces a fatal flaw into the fuel delivery system under high stress. She looks directly at Marcus. Code that was uploaded from your personal terminal at 2:17 a.m. The color drains from Marcus's face. He sputters, looking for a defense. This is absurd. It's a fabrication. You're going to trust this grease monkey over me? He points a trembling finger toward the back of the room, at Elias. He has been trying to undermine me for years. He's a relic, a nobody. The hangar is silent. Everyone turns to look at the quiet man by the door, and then another man steps forward. Senator Morrison. His face is ashen. He is staring at Elias, his eyes wide with disbelief. Thorne, the senator says, his voice a hoarse whisper. Sergeant Elias Thorne, 1st Special Forces. Elias uncrosses his arms. He gives the senator a slow, respectful nod. It's been a long time, sir. The senator turns to the stunned, silent room. His voice is shaking with an emotion that no one in Washington has ever heard from him. This grease monkey, this nobody, is the man who saved my life and the lives of my entire convoy in the Kandahar province. He points at Elias, but he is speaking to the board, to the generals, to history itself. We were ambushed, pinned down. Our lead vehicle was disabled. We were dead in the water. This man, Sergeant Thorne, under constant heavy fire, crawled under that vehicle with nothing but a wrench and some spare wire. He bypassed the entire electrical system. He jury-rigged the engine. He got us moving. The senator takes a step toward Elias. He took a piece of shrapnel in the leg and never said a word until we were back at base. I owe him my life. We all do. He stops in front of Elias. I tried to find you after. They told me you'd left the service, that you'd disappeared. I had a daughter to raise. Elias says quietly. The senator's testimony is not an accusation against Marcus. It is an annihilation. It vaporizes his credibility, his character, his entire existence within this room. It recontextualizes everything. The quiet man in the work clothes is not a relic. He is a hero. Clara Vance looks at Marcus Jennings, her eyes devoid of all emotion. Security will escort you from the premises. Our legal team will be in touch. Marcus stands frozen for a moment, exposed and defeated. Then 2 security guards gently but firmly take his arms and lead him away. Clara turns back to the audience. Now, she says, her voice steady and clear. Let's start this engine. She nods to Elias. He walks to the control console, his limp barely noticeable, and initiates the test sequence. The XT7 turbine spools up, its hum growing into a clean, powerful roar. It performs perfectly. The contract is secured. The future is safe. After the crowds have dispersed, after the congratulations and handshakes, the hangar is quiet again. The setting sun casts long shadows across the concrete floor. Only Elias and Clara remain. They stand in silence for a long time, listening to the ticking of the cooling prototype. Then they walk together toward the parking lot. The evening air is cool on their faces. They do not speak of what happened. There is no need. They reach their vehicles, parked side by side in the VIP lot, the sleek black sedan and the rusty blue truck. Elias looks at his truck, a fond expression on his face. She's not pretty, he says, but she's never let me down. Clara looks at her own car, seeing it now not as a symbol of status, but as a shell. It's just a machine, she says. She turns to him. I'm reopening my father's original R&D lab, the one in the old building, the one you 2 started in. He looks at her, waiting. I want you to run it, she says. Not as an employee, as a partner. We'll make it the new heart of the company. She is not asking him to join her world. She is asking to join his. He considers her for a moment, then gives a small, slow nod. It is all the answer she needs. He reaches into the cab of his truck and pulls out a small object. It is a metal puzzle box, intricately machined from brass and steel, its pieces fitting together with impossible precision. My father and I used to make these when we were bored, he says, his voice softening with the memory. He was better at the designs. I was better at the milling. He places the box in her hand. It is heavy and warm from the sun. It is a piece of a history she is finally ready to claim, a symbol of a partnership, renewed. 3 months later, the old R&D lab is alive again. It is not a sterile corporate space. It is a workshop filled with the controlled chaos of creation. Chalkboards are covered in complex equations. Workbenches are littered with tools and prototypes. The air smells of solder and coffee. Elias and Clara move through the space with an easy, unspoken rhythm. He is the quiet center, the hands-on genius. She is the sharp, strategic mind, the one who clears the path and connects their work to the world. They are a team. On a bright, windy Saturday, they are not in the lab. They are in a local park. Lily is there, her laughter carrying on the breeze as she tries to fly a kite. It is a complex kite, a box delta hybrid with a carbon fiber frame and a ripstop nylon skin. They designed it together. Elias and Clara stand side by side, watching her. They talk about thrust-to-weight ratios and quarterly earnings reports, their conversation weaving seamlessly between the technical and the practical. The barrier between their worlds is gone. As the sun begins to set, casting a golden light over the park, they pack up. Lily, exhausted from her battle with the wind, falls asleep in the back of the old blue truck on the ride home. Clara follows them in her car. They pull up to Elias's small house. He carefully lifts the sleeping Lily from the truck, her head nestled in the crook of his neck. Clara gets out of her car and walks over. They stand for a moment in the quiet twilight, bathed in the warm glow of the porch light. The rusty truck is parked at the curb, a silent, faithful guardian. They do not touch. They do not say the things that are growing in the quiet space between them. It is too soon, and the words are not necessary yet. "See you Monday, Clara," he says, his voice a low murmur. She looks at him, at the strong, gentle man holding his sleeping daughter. She smiles, a real smile, one that reaches her eyes and transforms her face. "See you Monday, Elias." She gets back in her car and drives away. He does not go inside immediately. He stands on the lawn, holding his daughter, and watches until her tail lights disappear around the corner. The street is quiet. The house is waiting. And for the first time in a very long time, the future feels like a machine built on a solid foundation.